Hello everyone, Zach here from Zake and Zach, and I'm here with a little bit of a different video for you today. I've been playing this game called Death's Gambit, put out by Adult Swim, a lot lately, and I've just recently finished it, my first playthrough at least. I will be playing through it several times, but with that, there is a lot of deep story elements to this game that I want to share with you all, and particularly one specific theory that I have about some of the characters involved within this game. And I do want to preface this with, there will be spoilers. If you are planning on playing this game at all on your own time and are wanting a spoiler-free experience of the story that this game tells, then I advise you don't watch this video. You're gonna want to just experience the story as is, because it has some really cool and interesting twists and moments. First and foremost, I need to start with this, that the theory is that you, the main character, Sorun, are siblings with one of your main rivals slash companions by the name of Ione. Ione is a badass spear-wielding knight that we encounter several times throughout the game and throughout the series. And the reason I think that Ione is our sibling is through subtle hints that the game gives us. First and foremost, Endless, the main boss of the game, is our own mother, Everly. And we spend basically the entire game figuring that out. However, in the start of the game, we see Endless and Ione together, often. Endless giving lots of advice and wisdom towards Ione, kind of guiding her along this path that Endless is currently on. Which is interesting for just a subordinate, because there's several other immortals that are striving towards the same goal that Endless has, but Ione seems a little bit special to Endless. She has taken the time, and in fact it's the only other immortal that we see Endless with during cutscenes and stuff, for the most part. During a fight towards the end of the game, with it being known as Thalamus, who is basically the embodiment of despair and tragedy, if we die right before that fight, we experience a cutscene of our home, where we grew up in. In our home, we actually, the character themselves, Sorun, take note that there is a bunk bed, even though they never had any siblings. He does note that he would have always enjoyed a sibling, but he never actually had one, and he always was curious as to why he had a bunk bed, which I thought was interesting. Now, children growing up, they're not the ones who decide, bunk beds or not. That's a call by the parents. Usually when the parents are planning another child. Early on in the game, we find out that Sorun's father has gone off to a war, and it kind of alludes to the fact that Sorun's father has died while away from home. We never really get that confirmation, but it's safe to assume that, I feel, with the context clues that the game gives us. Now, Ione, we certainly know who Ione's father is. The game makes it very clear that Ione's father has been corrupted and turned into the Dark Knight, a very powerful individual who has been corrupted by dark magic. So we know who Ione's father is. But as far as Ione's mother, she's actually never mentioned in this game, which is a bit peculiar with the whole idea of legacy about this game. It kind of strides a great deal of importance upon that. And if you look at the different fights between Ione and Endless, and how those two fight against you, you'll notice very similar patterns. Now, that may just be because Ione saw Endless as a mentor, but it also may mean something else. One of Endless's lines, when we're talking about our mother, and this is before she is revealed to be Everly herself, Endless talks about Everly had changed. That's the Everly you knew is not the same one that made it out or became an immortal. It's very interesting, the emphasis on that change. Another important thing to note is one of the last scenes when you're in the basically final room of the game with Endless and Death. You do note that Death brings up the fact that Endless has been away from Death, has been an immortal for years. Which, I mean, matches up with the fact that she's Everly and left when we were a kid. But since so much time has passed, we look about 8 years old or so when Everly leaves, and we are definitely somewhere in our younger 20s now, once we are the protagonist of the game. That's plenty of time for another child to have been born. Now what this means is the main character of this game, Sorun, is step-siblings with Ione. I don't believe that they are full siblings. I do think more so step-siblings, because a lot of Endless's motivation throughout the game is the fact that our father has died, and she's basically trying to make a world where no one close to her ever dies again. Which I think I'd consider Ione in that bucket, as we always see them together until Ione kind of sides with us more than Endless. And one last bit of information that I want to give to you to kind of weave this theory together that Ione and Sorun are step-siblings is one scene in particular. If you die to Ione while she is piloting the giant Gundam-like Gaian structure, and you come back, you see Ione reporting to Endless her victory, and you kind of interrupt it by spawning again. Endless notes that you're an immortal, but not by her hands. And more interestingly, right before that, Endless congratulates Ione in a very peculiar way, specifying that her father would have been proud. Now, that may just be because she knows the Dark Knight and is familiar with him, but it may also be a bit deeper than that. Think about how parents communicate about each other. It's like, oh, your father would be proud if he was here. Almost like a parting way. Just the way it is said, there's a little bit of more familiarity about it than simply that of a coworker or ally. No, I think there's a little bit more as to say, I would go as far as to say that Endless is the mother of Ione, which in consequence makes us the step-sibling of Ione. Ally, enemy, and sister.